everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. Let's see what articles and editorials we will be discussing today. Firstly, we have this article coming from The Hindu, which is titled as Women Uninterrupted. So basically, it talks about the health status of women, keeping in mind the COVID-19 pandemic. And as we know that in general also, people at large have to face a lot of health issues and health related, facility issues for that matter. But keeping them also in mind, women have been subjected to a greater extent of disparity in the health sector. So we'll discuss upon that. And second article talks about dignity amid COVID. Basically, this tries to cover the old age people that are there, or the old people that are, they also have to suffer more. So basically, both the articles talk about women, and secondly, that it talks about the old age or the old people, that how they have to have face problems due to COVID-19 pandemic. And thirdly, we'll be discussing News in Flash, which is LawSikho's own initiative, wherein we discuss the small and crisp news point, which are either important for our prelims exam specifically, or can be a good, a fuel for our various facts and data that we can quote in our answers. With this, let's see what courses do we have for you at LawSikho and wherein you can enroll yourself. Best of it will be the lot of the courses, which is the Judiciary Test Prep course, and the link of this you can find in the description box itself. You can go and see the landing page, and therein you can download for yourself free study material, which is amazingly drafted, keeping in mind the requirements of Judicial Services exam. Then we have various other courses also, like for CLAT and All India Bar Exam, etc. We are very shortly coming up with a full-fledged SEBI as well as law optional course also. So stay tuned with LawSikho for that too. Let's see that what is the MCQ for the day. Consider the following statements about Medical Termination of Pregnancy Bill 2020. Firstly, it would allow women to seek abortions as part of reproductive rights and gender justice. Secondly, it would increase the upper limit of MTP, which is medical termination of pregnancy, from 20 to 24 weeks. And thirdly, it would now be available to any woman or her partner, replacing only married women or her husband. So basically, anyone who's in relationship also or in a live-in relationship also will be counted under this. You have to choose the correct statement or statements from the above. A, first only. B, second only. C, first and third only. Or fourth. Or D, all of the above. So you have to write the answers in the comment section below. Let's see what is the descriptive question for the day. The impact of COVID-19 has been severe on the health of the people, but the most vulnerable have been women and their health. Comment. So basically, you have to understand in this that is it true or not, and if it is true, then how have the women been more vulnerable in the times of COVID-19, and you should also write down the suitable solutions for this problem. The answer to this question has to be written within a word limit of 250 to maximum 300 words, and you may also jot it down in the comment section below. Now let's start with the first article for the day, which talks about women health and COVID-19. The lockdown has disrupted healthcare services by restricting access to medical services. Now, as we know that only the cases that have high emergency involved into them, only they are being catered at the hospitals, other than the COVID-19 cases, of course. And due to this, many people have to suffer a lot. Now, this has actually impacted more of women's life, and as the global reports have also quoted. Now, very recently, like a few days ago also, we discussed the issue of women and the health issues that the women have to go through during the COVID-19 pandemic, as many women are not even able to avail the basic medical facilities which they actually needed a lot, and mostly to keep in mind were the pregnant women. So basically, as we know that during any pregnancy, a woman a potential would-be mother needs to see a doctor into various situations and must be given a regular medical help for that matter. But due to COVID-19, these medical services have not been available very readily for these women. Now let's see that what is the status of women's health in the times of COVID-19 according to various global reports and indices. Firstly, Marie Stopes International. So according to it, 2 million women missed medical services between January and June. And why is it important for us is that out of these 2 million of women, 1.3 million, so more than half of them are from India alone. So that actually is showing a bigger plight of your, is to say, a greater reason to worry about the women's health in our own country. Then need for the contraceptive is high in India, as 1 in 3 women report a need. But that need has not been met during this time of COVID-19, as to the simple ways of abortion or the contraceptive pills, which were earlier very readily available, have now actually seen a shortage in various medical stores. And thus women are facing a lot of problem in coping up with these issues. And secondly, according to the World Health Organization, in 103 countries, 67% reported disruption in family planning and contraception services. Then according to UN Population Fund, so basically you need not remember all of them, but some or the other that you find easier to remember, like for example, according to the WHO or UN Population Fund, these facts and statistics should be kept in mind, because they are a very good to say fuel to gain those brownie points which we all are looking in names answers. So according to UN Population Fund, 47 million women in 114 low and middle income countries would be unable to use contraceptives if average lockdown continued for 6 months. So that actually, if we see it from far, it might not seem to be a very huge problem. But many times when we have a closer look at it, many times women tend to get pregnant, but they are not to say physically equipped, or to say physically ready, or even mentally ready for having that child. And there are various other dangers that are associated with a pregnancy. And in such a scenario, when the basic right of deciding as to even if she wants to have that baby or not, she's not able to take that decisions due to the shortage of these medical services as well as the contraceptives that were earlier comparatively easily available. Then according to a domestic report, which is from the Foundation for Reproductive Health Services India, so this basically is a national level report, it showed a severe shortage of medical abortion drugs in pharmacies. So basically almost the same thing came out through our national data as well. Now here, another thing that becomes very, very important for us is to understand as to how at all we can resolve this issue. Because obviously we know the problem, we're also trying to understand the depth of this problem. But then the most important factor is that we know how to tackle with this problem and how to make the situations better. So firstly, telemedicine. Basically, the idea of telemedicine is growing a lot in the times when we are relying so much onto the technology. Basically, telemedicine is something that you can avail the prescriptions or even to say advices from the doctors through an online method. And also, you can get those medicines also delivered online. As we know that there are a lot of pharmacies now that have begun delivering the medicines at your doorstep. So that actually helps a lot, because in this time when we are not really allowed to go out, and it is not even safe to go out, right? And also we have to follow this idea of social distancing. Now in that time, telemedicine and tele-counseling through doctors also can be a brilliant idea. Secondly, incentives to local clinics, because but obvious at this point of time, local clinics are more to say incentivized, or they are more willing to keep products that are readily that can be sold readily. For example, masks, sanitizers, hand washes, and other products that are actually more important according to the current needs of the people. But then again, and that is why they're actually not paying a lot of attention in procuring the basic things that they earlier used to, because now obviously people are not coming to them that readily. But then this should not be a reason as to why these the basic to say rights of a woman should be taken away. And that is why in some or the other way, incentives should be given to the local clinics. Now these incentives could be, for example, they might be able to avail those contraceptives or other to say protection materials, to say at a lower price, maybe at concessional price. Maybe they can be given some extra benefits regarding their license or something, if they are helping women or people at this point of time. So basically we should try to incentivize these local clinics to keep these contraceptives more readily available. Thirdly, resolve drug supply chain disruptions. So almost the same point like telemedicine. So if we are actually not able to do it through physical means, so at least in some or the other way, the drug supply chain should not be disrupted. And we should make sure that at the end, the people, or specifically in this article, the women who want to avail such drugs for contraceptions, etc., they are actually able to get them. And fourthly, overall improve access to healthcare. So, but obviously, because many a times we have also seen that recently women have also lost their lives because they could not reach the hospital for their delivery in time. So, due to that also, so this was basic healthcare. So, actually, they were not even looking out for contraceptions or contraceptive pills for that matter. They only wanted to reach the hospital for a safe and proper delivery. But due to this COVID pandemic and the lack of health services, proper health services, they had to lose onto their lives. So that should not be the case. Now here is an add-on, though it was not mentioned in the article, but we have tried to put it in this article, as to what is the current abortion status or the legal framework that is available for abortion in India. So basically, till date, we are governed by the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. And in January itself, an amendment to it has been proposed. And that is why we're looking forward to Medical Termination of Pregnancy Bill 2020. So basically, here are the three most important additions that will be made if this bill actually becomes an act. Firstly, it would allow women to seek abortions as a part of reproductive rights and gender justice. So basically, not only just through health, due to health reasons or something, it will be a matter of right now. So they can actually avail it as their own right, keeping in mind their reproductive rights and their gender justice. Secondly, it would increase the upper limit of MTP, which is medical termination of pregnancy, from 20. Currently, a woman can legally get her child aborted till the time of 20 weeks of pregnancy. But then this would be extended further to 24 weeks. Then the medical termination of pregnancy would now be available to any woman or her partner, replacing only married women or her husband. Now, as we know that very recently in the Domestic Violence Act as well, it was just not a woman who is into a marriage, but also in a relationship similar to marriage. Basically, that was a live-in relationship. So live-in relationships in India have been made legal now. And in such a scenario, there is a very high chance that a woman might get pregnant. And that is why in this current act that we have for the medical termination of pregnancy, this legal abortion methods are available only for the married woman or her husband. So only they can allow the abortion to happen. But now, once this bill becomes an act, then any woman or her partner will be able to avail this termination of pregnancy. That means even live-in partners, or even people who are into a relationship also can get an abortion done legally. So with this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about mental and physical well-being of the elderly. So as we know that many a times we tend to ignore due to circumstances maybe, but still there is in a final situation, what happens is that we tend to ignore the issues that are being faced by our older generations. Now this issue could be of dealing with the technology, dealing with the basic necessities also for the health sector, mental health, and crime against them, security, law and order. So there are basically a lot of problems that are associated or that the elderly people have to face in our society. So according to the Center for Disease Control in US, 25% of those who died of COVID-19 are more than 55 years old. To this argument, we can definitely say that COVID-19 affects more of your immunity and the respiratory system, or the lungs, the system. So definitely people who are at an older age, they have a lesser of immunity, weaker immunity also, and their body parts are obviously, more exhausted. They cannot really take a lot of burden on their immune system or even on the respiratory system. So, but obvious, COVID-19 is more dangerous for the people above the age group of 50 to 55 years. True. Nobody can deny that. But then again, can there be any way that we can at least put this number to a bit of, a downer stage? Because obviously, the only reason cannot be physical, weakness. There are many other mental elements also that are attached to this. Because we know that whenever there is a patient who's suffering from some kind of disease, apart from the medications that that patient is getting, apart from the physical status of that patient, the mental health of that particular person also plays a very important role. It has been observed through various experiments that people who were happier and positive during their recovery or during their to say treatment or of a particular disease, they had a better chance of recovery and were actually more successful in recovering through from that disease. And that is why it is very important for us that we not only make the physical well-being of the elderly people better, but also make the mental health of the, also pay attention towards the mental health of the elderly people. Basically, measures like social distancing, self-isolation, and travel restrictions have disproportionate effect on the elderly. Basically, what we do is that since the time we have been into lockdown, for the youth particularly, it has not been that big an issue because obviously, yes, of course, we are not able to go to the movies, the malls, or to our work directly. We are working from home. Most of us are doing that. But it has not really impacted us to the extent that it has impacted the elderly people. Now, how does that happen? We, being the youth, have a greater access and understanding of technology. So we know the digital world. So it is easier for us to connect with each other either through phone calls, video calls, messages, and even it is very easy for us to keep ourselves entertained because we have a lot of websites, we have a lot of OTTs, which are the online curative programs like Amazon Prime, Hotstar, etc., and there are so many. So basically it is very easy for us to keep ourselves engaged and positive. But can we just think about the elderly people who do not really have a lot of knowledge about cell phones, telephones, mobile connections, connectivity, internet, communication, etc., and if in a situation they are isolated or even quarantined or they are following the social distancing norm, what could be their daily life routine and what positive would they be able to do? Obviously, they would be, in a way harassed a lot in the mental capacity, which actually worsens the situation and makes them more vulnerable to this disease of COVID-19. And that is why let's see that how COVID-19 has affected the elderly in India. So here are a few stats. Basically, dilemma of self-isolation says that about 88% of them, of the elderly people, live with their children, and this increases the risk of contracting the virus and also make them vulnerable to abuse and mistreatment. But obvious, because already we know that on the point of mistreatment, we know that according to various latest reports and surveys, the domestic violence also has increased since the time lockdowns have been pronounced. And in such a situation, the mistreatment or ill treatment and abuse of women have also increased. Also, the mistreatment and abuse of the elderly, like your parents or anybody who, or your grandparents who are there, they are also being mistreated because of the frustration that the youth currently has. No matter what, obviously, this cannot be anyway a justified step to do. But yes, this is the harsh reality that we have to face. And then 17 million who don't live with extended family, they result into loneliness and difficulty in accessing food, water, and basic services, because obviously there are many elderly people whose children they live in some other cities or maybe in some other country also, and they reside alone or just a old couple resides together. Now in such a scenario, obviously it is not safe for them due to their health issues and also due to their age that they go out and avail the basic services, and that is why it becomes really difficult for them to access basic facilities even like food, water, basic services like health, sanitation, etc. And that is why it is a big reason to worry. Secondly, lack of access to technology. Only 7% have smartphones and literacy is low, and we have already extensively discussed this point. Thirdly, lack of access to healthcare services like medical checkups have become infrequent and leads to mental illness, obviously, because many of them were already onto some of the other medications, and now due to lack of various health and medical services, they're not even able to avail their basic medications, which actually tends to make them more prone towards mental illness. And fourthly, economic stress. Undoubtedly, because 80% are either partially or fully dependent on others, and these others, like their children or their relatives, they already are facing this financial strain due to the economic slowdown as well as the lockdown. And now since those who are dependent on others, and if these others are also not able to get a good income, obviously it will give an impact on these elderly people as well. And that is why and the relief of rupees 1,000 and increase in pension reached only 20%. So though the government had made an initiative, but it was not really sufficient, that because it only could reach about 20% of these elderly people and not beyond them. And that is why we should, pay a lot of attention to this. Now let's see that what steps can be taken. Firstly, special provisions for the elderly in health schemes such as Ayushman Bharat Yojana. So basically, as we know, that it is an all India scheme, PAN scheme. And for your information, I would like to tell you that Ayushman Bharat Yojana is the world's largest setup that has been ever made for any kind of health services. And that is why it is important that we extend an arm or extend a branch of Ayushman Bharat for the elderly people also specifically. Then telehealth and medication, as we just discussed in our previous article also. Then direct subsidies to pensioners should be provided by the government, and that would be the basic ones. And other than that, obviously, we being the younger ones should obviously make efforts to give love and respect to our elder people, so that they never feel alone and disrespected. With this, let's see what do we have for news in flash today. Firstly, state of food security and nutrition in the world, SOFI report 2020. So basically, let's see that what actually is this report. Most authoritative annual report on hunger and food insecurity in the world. Now, I think this is more than enough, and it cannot be emphasized enough, because this SOFI report, which is State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World, it is the most authentic and reliable report on hunger and food insecurity. And that is why if you are able to point this or jot this down in any of your answers that talk about food insecurity or malnutrition, etc., or maybe there is a high chance that an essay may come keeping in mind the COVID-19 and the impact of COVID-19 on the food security, etc. If you are able to quote this report, you're definitely getting a 1 mark more than every other aspirant who is not quoting it. Then it has two key measures for measuring this. So one is the POU, which is prevalence of undernourishment. Now the reason I'm telling you is this, that a prelims question is very potential, maybe very potentially maybe asked from this. So the two parameters are, firstly, the prevalence of undernourishment, and secondly, prevalence of moderate and severe food insecurity. Now, as per the report, prevalence of food insecurity in India has increased by 3.8% between 2014 and 19, and by 2019, more than 6.2 crore people, it's very huge number, were living in food insecurity as compared to 2014. So this was all for today. We hope you liked the session. Stay tuned with LawSikho for such more sessions to come. Thank you so much.